know they're going to be disappointed. Harkonnen surviving that lurid moment very well. We're riding now with Ayrton Senna in the lead, and Senna has already established the fastest lap in this race. He's quite clearly in control, John.
Yes, he is, but in fact his lead on Alan Prost has now dropped from 4.4 seconds back to 3.6 seconds. What I suspect is happening is what we said earlier, that Ayrton makes these charges in the very early stages of a race, establishes that lead, then he starts to consolidate. And in fact, Alan Prost, who is not traditionally such sort of a greyhound out of the blocks as Ayrton Senna is now beginning to close that gap ever so slightly on Ayrton Senna. But of course, closing that gap on Ayrton Senna is one thing, getting past Ayrton Senna is an entirely different thing. But Senna, really, look how comfortable he is in the car. Everything he is doing with tremendous ease. He's driving just so much within himself. That is confidence. That is something that a driver gets through years of experience, but also because the guy is outstanding.
We were talking about this, watching him from the cockpit. You can see this enormous economy with which he drives. Moves nothing more than it has to be. You don't get any of this arm waving, elbow waving, seesawing that you see with Alesi and with Berger as well in the McLaren.
Yes, and well, in fact, just having said that, the gap has now reopened to 4.3 seconds, so maybe there was some traffic somewhere on the circuit that Senna had to slow off, back down for, but now Senna back up to 4.3 seconds. But he's got this fluidity of driving now. He's gone from being what was one time called the enfant terrible of Formula One, just raw speed and raw talent, and he's now evolving into an extremely mature and intelligent race car driver.
Well, Senna, of course, hoping to beat Fangio's record of Grand Prix wins and world titles. That's his ambition. This man is a computer while he's racing, isn't he?
He's also a good psychologist, because just before he went out to do that blistering qualifying lap on Saturday afternoon session, Prost had just put himself onto pole position. Ayrton Senna walked quietly over to his car, got in, got his helmet on, drove down the pit lane. He got to the Ferrari pit, stopped, looked across at Prost, stuck one finger up indicating, now I'm going to be in pole position, and then just drove down the pit lane and actually got the car on pole position. Now, just looking at our timing here, we've got Riccardo Patrese, who is in 6th place. He's actually set the fastest lap of the race, so his tyres can't be in such a bad condition after all.
Well, Riccardo Patrese then not heading back into the pits and bearing out exactly what you were saying earlier on. He was definitely the fastest of that little group of three, now currently the fastest thing round the streets of Phoenix.
Some of the cars further down the field, this of course is Ayrton Senna, your leader, but some of the Pirelli cars have been rather disappointing. Talking about the 2 Tyrrell Hondas and the 2 Benetton Fords, we had anticipated that Pirelli really would be very, very strong indeed here at Phoenix, because Phoenix traditionally has been a good circuit for the Pirelli tyre, but in the race and in fact throughout qualifying, Pirelli appear to have lost that edge that they have on the street tracks. Moreno and Piquet in the Benetton Fords, Stefano Modena and Nakajima in the Tyrrell Hondas have not been terribly impressive, and in fact I'm not all that impressed this year with the Tyrrell chassis. Now it has got the V10 Honda engine. That engine dominated last year in the McLaren chassis. McLaren didn't have the best championship outcome, so he will be disappointed not to pick up something in the top 6. Anything in the top 6 is a bonus. These 2 races here in Phoenix and then 2 weeks time in Brazil are really races that are almost outside of what drivers consider to be the championship. These are the bonus races. Anything you gain here is a big bonus for the rest of the year.
Well, Senna still the leader, Prost in 2nd place, Alesi 3rd, Patrese 4th, Gerhard Berger 5th, and in 6th place now Nelson Piquet with Roberto Moreno, his teammate, behind him. Welcome back to Phoenix, Arizona, where it's 3 in the afternoon by mountain time, which means this race is halfway over on the clock. 39 laps completed out of the 82, and the drama has just begun. If you've just joined us, then you won't know that both Nigel Mansell and Gerhard Berger have retired with mechanical problems, or what look like mechanical problems, in the last couple of minutes. Race leader at the moment is Ayrton Senna with a 21-second lead over 2nd place Alain Prost. In 3rd place, Jean Alesi for Ferrari, Riccardo Patrese now 4th with Nelson Piquet and Roberto Moreno, the Benetton teammates, 5th and 6th, and now the drama really beginning, although perhaps not for Ayrton Senna, because as far as I can tell he hasn't had a single dramatic moment since the flag dropped.
Everything has gone exactly to the Ayrton Senna game plan here in Phoenix, led from the lights going red to green. No one has challenged him, no one has really looked like challenging him. He's just really playing with Alan Prost now, who's in second place. He in fact has just set the fastest lap of the race on that 39th lap. 1 minute 27.153. Of course, that's a new lap record here at Phoenix on this revised circuit. But really, he's just doing what he wants to do with the rest of the field. He's got no pressure whatsoever. If he feels like throwing a quick lap in just for his own pleasure and satisfaction, he does it. He can back off a couple of seconds a lap, take it easy, survey what's going on, have a quick chat to the team in the pits, probably Ron Dennis, giving him all the information, all the telemetry in the pits. Of course, they can monitor exactly what goes on in that Honda V12 engine. Senna's got all that information read out on his computer within the car, but of course if there's a problem, whatever that problem happens to be, it would flash up very clearly indeed. But the team monitoring everything that engine does. It's just in having a problem with that gearbox quite a lot in testing, overheating. That looks to me like the gearbox has just plain cooked itself.
Well, they add themselves to a growing list of retirements now, which includes, of course, Nigel Mansell and Gerhard Berger, and is now 7 or 8 names strong. The front of the field looks much the same as it has done since the start of the race just over 42 laps ago. Senna in the front with a lead now over Alain Prost of 25 seconds, and that is a fair performance even for this Brazilian, especially around these very bumpy streets.
But whatever it was, 2 cars, both damaged and both out. It was Roberto Moreno's Benetton Ford. Look at that. Senna had to make a very, very obvious pull over to the left, had a good look to see which car it was. Nelson Piquet now in second place, Jean Alesi third, Stefano Modena fourth, Alan Prost fifth. In that position, in that corner, Satoru Nakajima now up to 6th place as the consequence of that incident.
Well, Patrese, as we said, took 2 seconds out of Ayrton Senna on a single lap, and quite clearly now from that replay, spun it on that corner, was left sitting in the very exit to it and clipped by Roberto Moreno. Both of those drivers lucky that wasn't a little bit worse than it was. But there's the new order. Ayrton Senna leads from Nelson Piquet second with Jean Alesi third, and that really is quite something. Piquet up into second place, Stefano Modena is fourth, Alain Prost is fifth, Nakajima is in 6th place, and that's an encouraging 6th place, isn't it?
Yes, it is, but what's even more encouraging for me is that Bertrand Gachot in the Jordan Ford is in 7th spot, just 3.5 seconds behind Nakajima. Can the Jordan team in their first Grand Prix get a World Championship point for the driver and for the Jordan team? Be fantastic if they could.
Well, a lot of fingers crossed all around the world, I should think, for Jordan. Lots of retirements in these last few minutes, lots of drama here in Phoenix. Join us again for more in a couple of minutes after this break.
30 laps to go yet. 30 laps to go.
Very hard to miss.
Well, here we are back up in the Virgin Airship looking down. This is the section of circuit just before we come up to the start-finish line. That sequence of slow left, right, 90-degree corners. Short, straight. And then we come down to that long tide. This is the new section of the circuit leading into that quick 4th gear, right-hand corner. In car with Ayrton Senna, the race leader. His lead now is 37 seconds in front of Jean Alesi. 14 laps to go. But Ayrton Senna in no danger from Jean Alesi. Jean Alesi's main concern would be to keep Nelson Piquet, who now is just under 1 second. Oh, Ayrton, that was almost a little mistake you made there. Anyway, Nelson Piquet, the other Brazilian driver currently in the race, is now 0.988 of a second behind Jean Alesi. Jean Alesi is lapping in 1 minute 29. Nelson Piquet 1:27. they love one another, but let's say it would be a very nice gesture on the part of either driver to try and let's forget about last year, all that antagonism. I know what happened in Japan, and the world will remain divided forever on who was to blame. I've got my opinion, other people disagree with me, I think they're wrong, but let's hope that these two guys can finally work out some form of compromise. The track is big enough for both of them, and that would be a nice situation, a nice gesture if Ayrton or Prost turned around to one and the other and said, look, let's shake hands, we're both professionals, we're both the best in the world, let's try and get on and live harmoniously.
Could we just wait for this squadron of pigs to come into land, John? Because I really think that with everything that's gone before in the past couple of years, that moment came and went, did it not, last season, and it passed, and I think never to be resurrected.
Well, it did, but it happened in a somewhat artificial situation.
Welcome back to Phoenix for the final few laps of the first Grand Prix of the 1991 season. You left us before the break with Pierluigi Martini going out with the Minardi. While you were away, Bertrand Gachet.
A Tyrrell victory at some point in the 1991 season. 6th place is now Oguri Suzuki in the Lola Ford, the LaRousse Lola Ford, with the Brian Hart DFR Ford engine. And that's the engine that Brian Hart has now designed, manufactured and fitted his new cylinder head. That engine is based on the old DFR, the DFV, the Cosworth engine. It's been around for 25 years. Brian has further updated that engine. He's got more power out of it. He's getting more revs. It's running to 12,000. When it comes to Imola in 2 weeks' time, it'll be up to 12,200. And he's hoping to get to 12.5 by the time we come to Europe. So still life of that old dog yet.
Well, I think old dog's probably the wrong word for it. There's certainly life in this old hand, and I think we can say that about Ayrton Senna, one of the experienced drivers, and he's certainly experienced at winning. 79 laps completed, and we're expecting to see the flag very, very shortly on the clock. This race scheduled for 82 laps, but I don't think it's going to make those, and we're expecting to see the checkered flag fall at any moment. When it does, it will fall on Ayrton Senna with a lead which has now crumbled somewhat from the 40 seconds it was 10 laps ago to 28 seconds. So Ayrton Senna definitely now, I think, taking it easy. He's down to 34, 1 minute 34 on his lap times. Alain Prost, not as quick as he was doing 1:26 about 10 laps ago, but he's now down to 1:32. So Prost too has slowed up, but not quite as much.
I think what Ayrton Senna is trying to do is do as few laps as he has to. I think he's trying to gauge and judge his speed to not do an extra lap, but in fact he now will have to do it. There's still not quite the 2 hours up. This is the last lap. Roland Brunsenrader, who is the clerk of the course here today, has just signalled to Senna one more lap. We're now 40-50 seconds short of the end of the race. This is the final lap officially. Ayrton Senna now lapping in the 1 minute 35s. Got sufficient lead over Alain Prost in second.
But it doesn't really hold good for the rest of the season. It has thrown us some surprises though. It's thrown us a couple of mechanical failures which have cost us Nigel Mansell and Gerhard Berger, and a little bit of a moment which cost us Riccardo Patrese and Roberto Moreno. Ayrton Senna though has not put a foot wrong. The McLaren Honda has not missed a beat. Everything has happened behind him and he has driven on oblivious to the whole thing.
I mean, look, he's coming in at a speed you could almost drive your I was going to say your road car, but I mean, he's driving very, very slowly. Look, waving. I mean, what can you say about the guy? He's just done an absolutely perfect job. He's now onto the start-finish line. He's going to come across. There he takes the flag. Ayrton Senna has won the first Grand Prix of 1991, and he's a very, very happy little Brazilian boy.
That's a little giveaway, that moment there. He was waving casually. He could almost have walked across the line, but as soon as he took that flag, beating on the top of the cockpit rim there, Ayrton Senna wanted that very badly, didn't he?
And there we have an artist making a portrait of the winner of the 91 Grand Prix here in Phoenix. Alain Prost has finished in second place, 16 seconds behind Ayrton Senna, but Nelson Piquet was only 1 second behind Prost. That was close.
Piquet, remember, didn't change tyres, so those Pirellis really have stood him in good stead. Having said that, Senna and Prost in the pits for tyres. Piquet therefore a little bit further back in the order than he could have been. He didn't close up enough while those two were in the pits.
Well, the two Benetton Fords ran 7th and 8th for quite a long time in the early stages of the race. They were not in contention at any time in that early part of the race. Through the retirements, through the problems of other people, they've gradually moved forward.
Well, jubilation for Ayrton Senna, a certain amount of celebration for Ferrari, finishing second, although Alesi on the retirement list as well. Disappointment during the course of this race, definitely for Lotus and Mika Hakkinen, and also for Jordan. There's the official result. Senna, Prost, Piquet in third place, Stefano Modena and Satoru Nakajima 4th and 5th, and 6th place Aguri Suzuki.